So you've done your research and you've narrowed it down to Albuquerque, New Mexico as a possible place to relocate to. You know all the things that people love about it. Well, in this video, I'm going to break down 10 things to know that you may not like before you relocate to Albuquerque. And number 10 is the absolute worst. So stay tuned. This is all about Albuquerque. Hey, it's Skip at Sold by Skip, and if it's your first time to the channel, you want to learn everything about Albuquerque, including what it's like to live here, work here, play here, then just be sure to tap that subscribe button and ring the little bell. That way you're notified every time we post a new video. Now, my team has been helping people from all over the US buy and sell homes here in Albuquerque, and we're excited to connect with you too. So give me a call or shoot me a text. Well, it's no secret that every city has its ups and downs, and I've had clients relocate from all over the place. Whether it's the East Coast or the West Coast, they always tell me there's some certain things they wish they had known prior to moving out here. So in this video, I'm gonna go through a list of 10 things that you may not like about living in Albuquerque. First thing, of course, if you're from a major metropolis like the East Coast, somewhere like New York, understand that our walkability is not quite what you would expect on the East Coast. Now, we're a pretty big town. I mean, our population is, something like 600,000 in the Albuquerque metro area. But if you're not living in downtown or just outside of downtown, maybe UNM or Nob Hill neighborhoods, then our town is not that walkable. Now, of course, we are covered from head to toe in hiking trails and biking trails that crisscross through the city. But if you're one of those people, you're kind of like me, who enjoy that nightlife where you want to walk to your local bar or walk to some restaurants with friends to do the night out, it's not going to happen. Now, Albuquerque is laid out in more of a suburb setting, right? So our city's broken into 4 quadrants. And each quadrant has their own set of suburbs. And suburbs mean generally that you're living in a neighborhood. And you can't really walk to any local nightlife or restaurants. Now, we have strip malls where you have your shopping center, you get your nails done, but it's not generally a thing you want to do on date night when you're walking out with your family. So that's one thing to be aware of. If you're relocating here, just know that you're gonna definitely need a car. The second thing that I always tell people before you move here, you have to understand how our taxes work here. We have something that's very confusing. It's called gross receipts tax. So if you're relocating here to start a business or you're an independent contractor, you provide a service as your income, just understand that we have a little bit of a different tax program called gross receipts tax, which is different from sales tax. And I think there's only a handful of states that actually have gross receipts tax. And if you want me to explain it to you, it's rather difficult. But basically the difference between gross receipts tax and sales tax is where the buyer pays the tax on the item. Now, gross receipts tax is where the service provider actually pays for the tax on the service provided. Does that make sense? Kind of. Let me tell you what Wikipedia has to say about it. A gross receipts tax or gross excise tax is a tax on the total gross revenue of a company regardless of their source. A gross receipts tax is similar to sales tax but levied on the seller of goods or services consumed. Basically, be aware if you're relocating here that the state of New Mexico imposes a tax on the gross receipts of businesses operating within the state known as gross receipts tax. The state allows cities and counties to also impose a smaller gross receipts tax rate for operations. Now, within the Albuquerque city limits, the gross receipts tax rate is 7%. Visit financenewmexico.org for a kind of a clear understanding on how New Mexico gross receipts tax works, and definitely something to discuss with your CPA. Because again, I'm just a guy on YouTube. Don't sue me, bro. Next thing you need to know about Albuquerque that you may not like, especially if you're moving again from the West Coast or someplace where the weather is the same every day. We've got seasons. We actually have really hot summers. The temperatures get into the 100 degrees and it's very dry, and the sun just beats down on you because we're at such a high elevation. So a combination of the hot sun and the dry air in the summertime, your skin is gonna itch, right? You're gonna get arm dandruff, stuff like that. But the good news is if you're one of these guys who sweats a lot, like in humidity, you sweat a lot. Well, here, if you sweat, it just evaporates right away. So again, you don't have that problem with the orange or the yellow armpit stains in your white t-shirt. So keep that in mind, The winters here are also very dry and cold. And it's not as much of a bitter cold as it is on the East Coast or anywhere where it's humid, right? You get that thick, dense air that just kind of cuts through you. Here, since we're at altitude, again, you got that thin air and the sun beats down on you. So even if it's cold here during the winter time, it's gonna feel much more mild than it would with humidity in the air. I had one of my first jobs was framing houses in the middle of winter, and I remember just hauling lumber around outside, and it was just bone-chillingly cold. And so if you have a job that you work outdoors, just keep that in mind. Of course, we do have seasons here. And of course, the worst season of all is our windy season. It takes place in the spring, and the winds blow, I swear to God, like 100 miles an hour. On the west side of town, it's specifically bad just because there's no mountain or anything to protect you. And those winds just blow in off of the mesa, and you see tumbleweeds going by and small animals just like flying in the wind. But it never stops. The allergies are horrific. You have to remember your Zyrtec in the morning because your eyes will just be bulging out during the windy season, because there's pollen, there's dirt, there's ragweed, tumbleweeds going by. It can be chaos. So keep that in mind if you have an allergy, dust allergy. Some months of the year can get pretty gnarly. Let's talk about the bugs. Now, we've discussed, if you live down by the river, you're gonna get your standard mosquitoes, and we get big mosquitoes too. And something about my wife, she has sweet blood or whatever it is, but those mosquitoes find her no matter what time of day it is. We could be out having a picnic and she's just swatting them off. I, for some reason, am immune to them. I mean, I don't get them that bad, but they find her, and it's like, it's like she's been rolling around in a thorn bush by the time she gets inside. So always spraying her with off and everything like that. The next thing to know, if you're moving into one of these older neighborhoods, you're gonna find that there's cockroaches. And cockroaches tend to stick in places that have, older sewer, that's kind of gross, but older sewage systems, right? Because that's where they tend to flock to. And even if you kill all the roaches in your house, they're gonna go next door to your neighbor's house, and they climb through the sewer lines. And I remember as a kid, my dad would always be like, hey, can you take the trash out? And I would always just be terrified to open the door, especially at night. You flick on the lights and it's just like, if you're in the wrong neighborhood, you get cockroaches running everywhere up your legs and stuff. Probably not that bad. But again, I recommend definitely, if you're coming out here, invest in a bug man. While our termite problem is not as bad as humid places, we will get cockroaches. And then again, I think it's in the springtime, we get centipedes. And centipedes come out in the west side of town, and they are gnarly, like this long and thick. And they just like line the streets, and they run during mating season or whatever it is. I don't know, they come out of the dark, but it's only for a certain time of year, but they come out and they're everywhere. And I found this when I was living on the west side of town. I'd be driving home from work, and it looked like there was just like paintballs all over the street from cars just running over these nasty centipedes, just legs and guts flying everywhere. So we definitely do have bugs. Not as bad. We have flies and ants and stuff, all the standard stuff. But again, if you're living by water, living in an older neighborhood, or living out on the west side of town, you may run into a bug situation. Another thing to know, if you're looking for a huge metropolis, Albuquerque is kind of smaller on the scale of city size. We have Denver to the north, which is booming due to their cannabis industry. We've got Dallas and Houston, everything in Texas, which is growing exponentially because of all the benefits that there are living in Texas. And then also to the west, Phoenix. Phoenix has grown exponentially because of the snowbirds by there, the affordability, the sunshine, the heat, the golf is great. Everything is great about Arizona and Phoenix. But Albuquerque has kind of been the last town or the last city in the Southwest to see any type of exponential growth. So we're starting to see a ton of new home construction on the west side of town, sometimes up in the heights around in Rio Rancho. So if you're looking for a huge city, we're not there. We're not there yet. So there is still time to get in before our values start growing exponentially. We have some major industries coming to town. Traditionally, we've been a natural gas and oil state and a ton of government jobs, but we're seeing more and more industry, bigger industry, Amazon, Netflix coming to town, offering huge number of jobs. Solar is huge here as well. So we're starting to see economic growth finally in Albuquerque, and we're probably going to be the next city to pop. So if you want to wait until it gets, bigger and more expensive, then do it. But if you're looking for a place that's, gonna be smaller, more of a small city feel, then Albuquerque is probably a good spot for you. While we're not a huge city, the next thing you need to know, if you rely on public transportation, like if you're from New York and you're used to jumping on the subway or anything like that, we don't have that here. Like, we do have a public bus transit system that does a great job of crisscrossing the city. But our city is big enough and we don't have the walkability, like I said. So public transportation has always been lacking here. Now, we have made steps in the past few years, developing the Albuquerque Rapid Transit program, bought some new buses and created some new bus lanes. But realistically, you will need a car if you live here, because let's be honest, dude, if you need to rely on public transportation, taking a bus from one end of town to the other end of town, it's gonna take you a while. So you will need a car because of our lacking public transportation. But again, anymore, who takes public transportation? If you don't have a car, you can always Uber, right? The other main way that people get around here is by biking. And we have bike lanes and we have bike trails that go around the city and stuff like that, up through the mountains. Street bikes are big, but mostly guys and gals have mountain bikes here. And it's because mountain biking trails are so much fun and it's so prevalent here because of the mountains, obviously. But people will mountain bike to work. Just keep in mind, if you are a bike rider, Albuquerque is shaped in a valley, right? This is the Rio Grande River Valley that runs right through. So if you ride downhill to work, chances are you're gonna have that uphill grind going back towards home, wherever that may be. So what do you think so far? I mean, there are some reasons you shouldn't move to Albuquerque if it doesn't check all of your boxes, but what are some things you've heard about Albuquerque besides the crime? Leave a comment in the section below. So if you're used to Southern cooking or West Coast style cooking, or if you love New York pizza, or if you just hate Mexican food, then I'll tell you this, Albuquerque is not the place for you. We don't really have Mexican food per se. We do have New Mexican food, which is our take on Mexican style food. It's got different flavors, it's cooked a little bit differently. But if you don't like Mexican food, you're gonna hate the food here, because most of the restaurants and most of the culture revolves around New Mexican style food, red chili, green chili, slow marinated pork, roasted pork. Just fantastic meals. I mean, for me, I think, but again, I'm local, I'm from here. But if you're not a fan of that, then watch out, because that makes up the majority of our food. Deep fried sopapillas, tortillas. And we do have some vegan options if you're a vegan, but we have a ton of hunting in New Mexico, so meat is big here. There's a lot of meat eaters, and the food is not for everybody's taste, but if you like it, you will love it here. I want to double back on this. We talked a little bit about dry skin and dry air. So the air here is super dry. So being at the elevation, it's very hard to stay hydrated. So if you're an athlete and you love exercising, it's really hard to breathe here. It's really hard to stay hydrated here. And you'll notice that you're gonna be exhausted when you move here, right? Even if you visit here for the weekend to go check out some properties, maybe you're staying in an Airbnb, just take a minute and notice that it will affect you. It will affect your energy levels, your mood. You will see that you do have dry, itchy skin. And I always get red eyes. That's how I know that I'm dehydrated, is my eyes turn red and itchy, not just from the allergies, but that could be something, it's always a telltale sign that it's time to chug some water. The next point I want to bring up to you is, if you are used to that East Coast mentality, if where you live, people are rude, people keep to themselves, then you're not going to want to come here, because Albuquerque, despite what people have heard, is a very friendly town. And the reason is because of our size. Everybody's outdoor, everybody's athletic here, because we have so many trails, so many sports. Skiing, golfing is amazing. Everybody seems to be outside and enjoying fresh air. So if you are one of these people that are in the grocery line and you like to keep to yourself, and I don't want to tell you about my day, you may not like it here, because people are just outgoing. Everybody's usually in workout clothes for the most part, but people love to chit chat, whether you're in the grocery line, waiting for your table at a restaurant, or just out and about. People ask you how your day is, what kind of dog is that? And I think that's something that catches people off guard, especially if you're not used to that where you live or where you were grown up. So if you're an introvert and you don't like to be around people, just understand that this is kind of a small town feel in a big city. And last thing, I told you it was the worst thing about Albuquerque. If you're relocating here and you don't have a job set up, our unemployment rate is high. Now, we're doing a good job of bringing industry in here and creating new jobs, but if you don't have a job already, you may hate this. This may not be the place for you, because if you don't work in the government or gas and oil sectors, then it can be challenging to find employment here. Again, we do have huge employers like Intel and Array Technologies and warehousing jobs, stuff like that. Netflix is hiring a ton of people. So if that's the industry you're looking for, you may love it here. But again, if you're looking for service industry jobs, we do tend to have a higher unemployment rate. But again, that's something that we're working on, because Albuquerque is poised to grow. We're the next city that's gonna pop. So if you wanna get ahead of the curve, you're more than welcome to come here. In fact, when you get here, be sure to reach out, give me a call, shoot me a text. I'm happy to show you around our city, find an area that's right for you. So if you're thinking about making that move to, in, or around Albuquerque, again, just give me a call, shoot me a text. Aside from that, just do me a favor and tap that like button. Let me know what you think of this video so far. And if there's any other things that you've heard about our city, besides the crime, let me know and I'm happy to cover it in more depth with you. Wait! Before you leave, I want to share another video I think you might find informative by clicking up here. And lastly, friends, don't forget to subscribe here by clicking this link to stay up to date with future videos. And as always, visit soldbyskip.com for a free list of homes priced to sell. Thanks for watching.